items at the regular council meeting on Tuesday, January 28, 2025, in council chambers, Sparta Township, Municipal Building 65 Main Street, Sparta, New Jersey. The time is 7:29. The town council closed executive session. Was opened at 5:30 and closed. The regular meeting is now open. All meetings are now live streamed and can be viewed at the following link, www.youtube.com/SpartaTWP/streams. Adequate notice of this meeting was provided to the public and the press on January 10th, 2025, by delivering to the press and posting on the township website a copy of the notice. Madam Clerk, may we have a roll call?
Councilman Scott. Here. Councilman Blumetti.
Here.
Councilman Chiarello.
I'm here.
Deputy Mayor Murphy.
Here.
Mayor Clark.
Here. All right, may we stand and salute the flag? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we have 3 minutes that we need to approve before we get to the manager's report. May I have a motion to approve the October 8th, 2024 regular meeting minutes as presented?
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
May I have a second, please?
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
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 Actually, I think the people that were not present for the meeting should recuse.
Oh, that's a good point. Thank you for catching that. So we'll do that again because you.
Actually, probably shouldn't make the motion.
Yeah,
so-
yeah.
So
For
I will
the,
make a motion that we approve the regular meeting minutes from October 8. I'll second it.
okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And abstentions?
Abstain.
So 3 ayes and 2 abstentions for the council members who were not yet on council as of October 8th, 2024. May I have a motion to approve the October 22nd, 2024 regular meeting minutes as presented?
I move that we approve the regular meeting minutes for October 22nd, 2024 as presented.
May I have a second, please?
I will second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Abstain?
Abstain.
So 3 ayes and 2 abstentions for the October 22nd, 2024 regular meeting minutes.
I
May-
move that we approve the regular meeting minutes for November 26, 2024 as presented. I will second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Abstention?
I abstain.
And 2 abstentions. Okay, the meeting minutes for October 8th, October 22nd, and November 26th, 2024 have been approved. Manager Zepp, may we have your manager's report?
Absolutely. Good evening, Mayor, Council, Sparta residents, both present and on the YouTube stream. I'm pleased to announce the addition of 2 new employees who start in 2025. Emily King has joined the Planning, Zoning, and Engineering Department and also serves as an Environmental Commission Secretary. June Wolf has joined the Finance Department as our payroll clerk. We warmly welcome them to the Sparta team. The Sparta Township Fire Department has received its long-awaited new fire truck, which will be placed into service at the end of this week. The fire department extends its sincere gratitude to the residents of Sparta and the township for their continued support in providing this vital piece of equipment to enhance their services to the Sparta community. In 2024, the Sparta Fire Department responded to 585 calls for service. The Recreation Department is currently accepting registrations for late winter, early spring programs, including track and field. Additionally, the Circle of Friends preschool registration for the 25-26 school year opens on February 15th. The preschool is located on the lower floor of the Sparta Library. As a reminder, the Winter Carnival is scheduled for this Saturday, February 1st, at the Sparta Middle School, starting at 1 p.m. Sparta Police, local businesses, and volunteers will all be on hand to bring fun to this family event. The Sparta Bunny Breakfast is scheduled for Saturday, April 12th. Both time slots, 9:30 to 10:30 and 11 to 12, are full, as planning is already underway. This past Saturday, the 2025 rabies clinic ran smoothly. There was a lower than usual turnout, possibly due to the postponement and cold weather. Thank you to our Animal Control Officer, Don Critchlow, and the Public Works Department for assisting in this service. Congratulations to former Councilwoman Christine Quinn, who has won the New Jersey Recreation and Parks Association Public Service Award. She will be presented with her award at the 50th Annual Conference on February 25th in Atlantic City. Chief McCarrick will now read his portion of the manager's report. This concludes my report.
Actually, before we get to that, if I may, when did we order that truck? Like 4 years ago?
It was just about 4 years ago. You guys bonded it back in '21.
Yeah.
Wow.
And through various delays, that too many to enumerate, but we did cross the finish line.
Well, I just want to say that is, it might just seem like, oh, we got a truck. That's great. But that is a 7-figure truck. That is a source of pride for this town and for the department. And that is a big deal. So thank the department as well for me.
Yeah, keep your eyes out for it. I'm sure we'll see it soon.
That is a big deal.
Mr. Zepp, will there be any kind of opening ceremony, or I forget what they call it when they
Well,
initiate?
right, they
yeah.
usually do a wet down or
down.
something. I have to speak to the chief and I'll
yeah,
report
It's a little
back.
cold right now, but
Yeah, it is.
okay.
That'd be great.
That'd be
I'm
fun.
glad you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Manager Zepp. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Tonight, I want to speak about some concerns, involving the immigration community and customs enforcement. And I'm going to speak in reference to Attorney General Law Enforcement Directive 2018-6, known as the Immigrant Trust Directive. And it really talks about how law enforcement is involved with ICE and immigration enforcement. So this directive was issued in November 2018 by New Jersey Attorney General at the time, Graywall. The directive aims to strengthen the trust between New Jersey's law enforcement officers and the state's diverse immigrant communities. And we want to ensure that the victims and witnesses feel safe reporting crimes without fear of deportation. So under this directive, New Jersey police officers cannot participate in federal raids. They cannot stop, question, arrest, detain, or search an individual based solely on actual or suspected immigration status. And they cannot ask an individual's immigration statute except in rare cases when it's relevant to specific criminal investigations. Also, no county, state, or local law enforcement officer shall provide the following types of assistance to federal immigration authorities. So these are things that we cannot do with them. Participating in civil immigration enforcement operations, providing any non-public personal identifying information regarding an individual, providing access to any state, county, or local law enforcement equipment, office space, database, or property not available to the general public. You cannot provide access to a detained individual for an interview unless there's certain, unless the detainee signs a written consent form that explains the purpose of the interview, that the interview is voluntary, and that the individual may decline to be interviewed, and that the individual may obviously choose to be interviewed only with his or her legal counsel present. We also cannot provide or a detained individual of upcoming release from custody unless the detainee is currently charged or has been charged with a violent or serious offense, or in the past 5 years has been convicted of an indictable crime other than a nonviolent crime, or if the subject is subject to a final order or removal that has been signed by a federal judge and lodged within the county jail or state prison where the detainee is being held. So they have to be lodged already. And we cannot continue the detention of an individual past the time he or she would be eligible for release from custody based solely on civil immigration detainers. So with that, there's also things that we can do with ICE. And it doesn't restrict us or prohibit us in any way to prevent a state, county, or local law enforcement officer from enforcing criminal laws in the state. Obvious thing, you break a law, we enforce it, we investigate it. Complying with all the local and state laws. Complying with a judicial warrant. If it's a signed warrant by a judge for an arrest, sometimes we would get involved. And we could participate with federal authorities in a joint law enforcement task force for the primary purpose of which is unrelated to federal civil immigration enforcement. So oftentimes there are state, local, and county officers that are lent out to a task force with federal officers. And so the bottom line is, that, I want to stress that it's important to remember that our officers engage with the individuals who are victim of a crime, and sometimes they are not here legally. That's not the purpose of what we're looking at. If you're a victim of a crime, we want to get you the assistance, the help that you need, and, we want to make that point that that's our sole purpose. You need help, we're going to get you that help. We're not going to worry about your immigration status. So additionally, our office and our department must file annual reports with the Attorney General's office and the County Prosecutor's office in reference to our involvement with specific areas noted in the Immigrant Trust Directive. And in 2024, the Sparta Police Annual Report, Immigrant Trust Directive, the Sparta Police Department has not participated in any civil immigration enforcement operation with ICE. The police department has not provided non-public personal identifying information to ICE. The police department has not provided access to law enforcement assets to ICE for civil immigration enforcement purposes. The police department has not provided access for ICE to a detained individual for an interview. The police department has not provided notice to ICE of a detained individual's upcoming release. And the police department has not provided or continued detention for ICE of a detained individual past the time otherwise eligible for release. And so that has been filed and reported with our Attorney General's office. I did also have a conversation with Sparta Superintendent Matt Beck today in reference to, the issues that you're hearing with immigration being able to come to schools. He has some guidance from the Department of Education already and made his staff aware of if something would come up and what they are to do. So we're there. If anybody has any questions for me, you can reach out. I hope that helped.
Excellent. Thank you very much for looking into that and probably providing guidance. I know our community was concerned about that.
Welcome.
Thank you, Chief.
Well,
There are other parts of your report that okay.
that's it.
Okay, I want to thank you, Chief, for addressing a concern expressed by many Sparta residents about local law enforcement being enlisted to assist in the federal government's immigration efforts. I will take this time to address it, and just because I've been put in this position, and so I will address those. But again, these are positions that only are attributable to me. They're not attributable to Sparta Township. They're none of my fellow council members. And I'll explain why I'm doing that. Every week in Mass, the congregation is led in what's called the prayer of the faithful. It's a prayer that for the concerns and needs of the congregation in our community. The prayer specifically pleads for government and elected officials to act with truth and justice. And so I will do so now. Now, folks know I do not like weighing in on national matters. I'm focused on the local issues that directly affect the lives of Sparta residents. But this past week, I've heard from some Sparta community members expressing concern about the constitutionally questionable raids that are occurring in our schools, in our churches, in our communities against our immigrant population. Now, my fears and reluctance to address this matter went away when I remembered the oath that I took less than a month ago, which was to support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey, and to bear truth, faith, and allegiance to the same. We still have a Fourth Amendment to the Constitution, and it still applies to citizens and non-citizens alike. Assisting and enforcing searches that run afoul of the Fourth Amendment protection against unreasonable searches and seizures are not only unlawful, but subject this township and its officials to liability for a federal civil rights lawsuit. And indeed, I find it somewhat hypocritical and contradictory that some of the folks that are cheering on these questionably constitutional raids are the same people who worry about a litigation risk involved in mundane municipal matters like planning board and professional appointments. And there's one particular area I do want to address, which is the call to end birthright citizenship, a right enshrined in our Constitution under the 14th Amendment. This affects me directly. My wife is a first-generation American who is a U.S. citizen because she was born in the United States. Her father left his family in Hungary after the communist overthrow as a teenager in the 1950s. He went on to not only become a U.S. citizen, but to represent the United States in 4 Olympics. Her mother at the time of my wife's birth was not yet a U.S. citizen, but had her green card and was working at the United Nations. Now, had birthright citizenship been revoked before my wife's birth, this community would have lost a woman that have saved families, marriages, and lives as a family psychologist. How many other community healers do we risk losing? Now, finally, I will close where I began, which was in church, and share with you a reading that we had this week from 1 Corinthians verses 14, 20 through 22. And it reads, "And indeed the body consists not of one member, but of many. As it is, the parts are many, but the body is one. The eye cannot say to the hand, I have no need of you. And nor can the head say to the feet, I have no need of you. What is more, it is precisely the parts of the body that seem to be the weakest, which are the indispensable ones." Thank you, and I appreciate the indulgence. All right, with that out of the way, we are now up to our first public comment period. These are matters that are
Mayor?
items not.
Excuse me, we need a motion to accept the manager's.
Oh, I always want to jump right that. Thank you for reminding me. May I have a motion to approve the manager's report?
I make a motion to accept the manager's report.
May I have a second, please?
A second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The manager's report is approved. We are now at our first public comment period. This is for items that are not on the agenda, so take a look at the agenda. If you see something there that you want to talk about, now is not the time. And so please proceed to the front and state your name and address for the record.
Michael Sylvester, resident of Sparta, New Jersey. Good evening, and I wanted to start by congratulating Deputy Mayor Murphy and her husband, Mark Scott, and all of you representing Sparta's 2025 Mayor and Town Council. I'm here tonight to go on public record that the recent decision to remove me from the planning board was, in my opinion, unjust. With no disrespect to Mr. Dash, your legal interpretations do not truly represent the facts and cites inaccuracies. My planning and zoning board terms did not run concurrently, and I was not designated, to my knowledge, as a zoning board liaison to the planning board. In fact, I have a letter from the township stating my term is to end 12/31/2025, the end of this year, and here's the letter. Equally and more importantly, despite the decision made earlier this January, it's personally and professionally disheartening that I was not formally notified by you, Mayor, or any other township officials on such decision. To have me operate over the past 3 years as a planning board representative and only now have this issue conveniently raised makes this timing a bit concerning, to say the very least. I appreciated serving on both the planning and zoning boards and took that privilege and responsibility very seriously. A true honor to serve the residents of Sparta Township. In closing, I'd like to remind all of us, our positions as public servants are a privilege by the people and under an oath, which should not be compromised or abused. The perception or reality of stacking boards to potentially control an outcome despite individual, political, or personal agendas is not in the best interest of our community. So I thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Gerard, Gerard, Murphy, Murphy, 161 Alpine Trail. I'm going to piggyback on Mr. Sylvester's statement. I know who the appointing authority was for his appointment to either board. It was me and my other former council members. So I'm really disheartened to see how rudely this man has been treated. He is probably one of the most knowledgeable people I've ever met or served with on the planning board. And to summarily dismiss him with no formal notification is egregious and uncalled for. And I don't know who did it, but I'd like to know who made the motion to do that. Which one of the council people here did that?
We would have to go back to the record, but without, I could what I would say, it might have been me. And if it was to address what was explained to me was a statutory violation that was occurring. And I think we as a council have an obligation to remedy statutory violations as we see them and as they occur.
You
and
see
the
them or
immediacy.
as your attorney sees them? Who advised you? This is what the public needs to know. If you don't have an answer tonight, just say
No,
so,
I
and
mean,
I'll
I
come
think
back.
we explained it on the record, the basis upon which we made the appointment.
Yeah,
If you go
what
back
was
and
it?
listen to that, you will.
What was the justification for the removal of this man 1 year prior to the expiration of his term?
That's a legal issue, and I'm happy to have Mr. Dash, if he wants to explain you the legal basis on that, if you feel it's appropriate.
I'm happy to address it. It was previously addressed at the meeting in which this vote was taken. The municipal land use law provides that the term of a zoning board member will terminate the planning board will terminate concurrently with the zoning board termination, which was at the end of 2022. That at the time he terminated by law, that he remained on the planning board for additional 2 years. I understand Mr. Sylvester disagrees with it, but we base our decision on Section 23B of the municipal land use law, and respect your disagreement, but I don't think.
Well, you can respect my disagreement, but the question is, Mr. Sylvester said your facts were wrong. Are you going to correct them?
I disagree. Our facts are wrong, and I don't believe.
Well, you know what? We'll come back and address it another time. But I'd like to know also, and I'll poll each one of the council members. Do you know what a rice notice is? Mr. Chirell,
Yes, I do.
Mr. Blumetti, Mayor, Deputy Mayor,
I'm learning.
do you know? Yes or no?
I am learning.
Yes or no?
No.
Mr. Scott? Yes. You do. Was any rice notice issued to this man? I think that's self-evident.
Well, embedded in your question is the assumption that it would apply, and I don't think
Well,
you're not
it-
getting an agreement from council that a rice notice would apply to an at-will designee of the planning board. So I think you have a couple of legal steps you need to go through
Well, you're.
before you embed
Mayor-
an assumption.
Mayor, you're right, you're right. It does normally apply to employees of the town, but can be extended to volunteers. And I think out of courtesy to a very qualified man who you bounced off, you owed him at least an explanation or an opportunity to justify why you're letting him go and let him defend himself. I think that's, you've missed the mark. So what I've done, I've left a letter with the municipal clerk. There's a letter in an envelope, one letter for each one of the members on the council. You each pick one, put your heads together, and I think you'll find out where I stand on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Caitlin Gagnon, Summit Road. First, I'd like to congratulate the new town council members and Attorney Dash. I'd also like to preface this by saying what I have to say tonight is strictly in my personal capacity, not in any way reflective of my capacity as board president of the Sparta Board of Education, its members, the board as a whole. I'm here to talk about the opioid settlement and was hoping for any possible update that we might be able to hear. But I'd like to start with a small personal anecdote. And I'm sorry, I'm not sure that it's an agenda item for this evening. I don't believe it is from my review last night. So if it is, I'm happy to speak during second public comment. So personal anecdote, I turned 36 in August, and my father celebrates 39 years of sobriety in July. And recovery is a very near and dear tenet of my life. I think that my father's sobriety is the best thing that ever happened to me. It's made me the person, the mother, and the wife that I am today. And I bring that up to say a large part of my childhood involved AA meetings, Al-Anon meetings. As a single parent, my father found a lot of support in the community and the program that we learned to love at a very young age. to the point where some of those program members were the people we named in our prayers each night. So I can honestly say that recovery, again, plays a very, very large role in my life and my family. And I bring that up, there's a point to the anecdote. I bring that up to say, I understand that there's opioid settlement funding available to Sparta, has been, and according to the recent resolution or regulation on the county level this January, those funds will continue, which is great news for us. However, I was a little bit disappointed. Granted, these were more rumors than anything, but I did hear a former town council member was explaining that they intended to use those opioid settlement funds to start an ROTC initiative here in our township. And while I am absolutely of the mindset that youth and youth prevention are really important targeted areas for these initiatives, ultimately, I do think that recovery plays a very, very large role in that process. And unfortunately, I believe that recovery is generally stigmatized on a grand scale. So what I would like to ask, and again, while if this is something that's already in the works and we're already moving towards that, and those funds have already been allocated, that's fine. But I would certainly urge the new town council to consider really putting the emphasis on recovery efforts rather than solely on prevention, and especially prevention that could be contested in terms of whether or not we're directly applying these funds to methodology that could arguably cause or help foster a cure. So yeah, if there's an update, and again, if this is something that's already taken place, I thank you. But there are absolutely members of our public that are in recovery, that do need services, expanded services. Those programs need funding and depend on funding and are often underfunded. So if there's an opportunity for you as a town council and in partnership with our chief to offer that to our community, I can say I do have personal friends and even friends with spouses who have to travel many counties away to get the fortified program opportunities that they need. Some of the Sussex County programs aren't the strongest, particularly the ones available in Sparta. So even fostering those efforts, helping the local programs so we can ensure that they're getting what they need on a local scale would mean a lot to me. So again, just in my personal capacity, I want to make sure we're advocating for members of our community who deserve the support that you might be able to provide. So thank you. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you for, and thank you for coming out. And I agree that substance abuse is deadly serious. And I believe that emphasizing acute care is much more effective because it's literally a matter of life and death. And I think going forward, and I've shared these concerns with the manager and the chief, that I think we're going to be on a good path going forward, that these funds will be directed toward providing the most good where we can.
Do we know, or have funds been used to start an ROTC program?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Mayor, would you like me to touch on that?
Yeah, that'd be
I
great.
was
Thank
going
you.
to say, the
So-
public should know that the chief is well-versed in, because this topic has come up a few times in a few sessions and all, and we are doing our best to be as transparent as possible to eliminate those rumors. So one is I appreciate you coming to public session and bringing that to light. But I've been with the chief on several occasions where he's done an excellent job explaining that. He's actually got even more involved with the program and the distribution. And I don't want to steal his thunder, but we are aware of this. So, Chief, take it away.
Yeah, so we have, I'm trying to talk at the microphone, but I did have an extensive report that I put out to the public, I don't know, probably a few months ago on this, and kind of the history of the funds and what's going on and where we are at now. And our focus is on treatment, recovery, prevention, and harm reduction. I know tomorrow
have a meeting.
the mayor and I also sit on the committee for the county to discuss the opioid settlement funds. Right now in Sparta, some of the things that we have done towards all these different areas, community engagement, police youth programs such as our Junior Police Academy and LEAD, Municipal Alliance, we give a certain amount, and what they do is mostly speakers and programs to the Center for Prevention and Counseling in the schools. And we had brought together not just the public schools, but also the private schools within our community. Money has gone to the Sparta Food Pantry, and, you know, in big discussion with our local Center for Prevention about that, really touches on recovery, on some of the hardships that individuals have during their recovery portion, and trying to make ends meet. And so to support that food pantry, it gives them a little help there. I have spoken to the Center for Prevention is my go-to, just so you know. They really help me out a lot and provide me some guidance on where to go with this. We have talked about other areas of recovery and also training for us as officers on de-escalation, first aid, CPR, naloxone deployment, purchasing those items that we need. And I'm also in the process, and it's quite an in-depth process of purchasing through the funds a harm reduction vending machine that we're looking to put at our library. And what that is, it's a vending machine, free dispense of test strips and Narcan, and with that information that comes with it on local places to assist with treatment, recovery, and so on and so forth. Our department also has a very extensive history and participation with Sussex County Clear, which is a community law enforcement addiction and recovery. We support that. We're also in the process of working with them to provide information, say if we go to a medical call for somebody that may have overdosed, we always provide them information. We provide them the clear information, and they could follow up. Sometimes people don't want to go to the hospital. We can't force them, and if they don't want to go, we're going to try to get them in touch with a clear recovery specialist to try to talk to them directly and possibly make a house visit. We're in the process of working, you know, and coming up with an MOA on that right now. So those are some of the things that we're doing. I mentioned in the last quarterly meeting at the county level that I would really like to do a survey to put out, a questionnaire to our township to see some of the ideas that the public may think would assist with or could use and benefit from these funds. So I'm looking maybe for some help on some of the questions to put out. If you'd like to be a part of that, or anybody in the public, please contact me. My email's on the website. That's where we're at right now. I hope I answered some of your questions in a nutshell.
Above and beyond, so thank you so much. And I apologize for not coming sooner. I intended to come to the last 2 meetings to speak on this, but timing didn't work, and the county initiative was released, and that kind of prompted me to get back here. So I appreciate it. This all sounds wonderful. I'd be more than elated to help in any capacity that I can. But yeah, thank you for putting that rumor to rest, and more importantly, focusing on the future initiatives and plans for what we can do with these funds. So thank you. I appreciate it very
Yep,
much.
no problem.
Thank
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just say as someone who's attended the opioid settlement fund meeting, and there's one, in fact, for tomorrow, I have put the emphasis, as Chief McCarrick has, on treatment. We have to remember what the genesis of these funds were, and they were a lawsuit based upon the unlawful acts of the manufacturers of opioids, and that caused municipalities to have to spend tons and tons of money on treatment, et cetera. And so the idea was to put this money in the hands of the people who are affected by the misconduct of the pharmaceutical manufacturers. And I know that's a point that's been emphasized over and over again. And while prevention is very important, we have to remember that where this money came from, and its genesis was to put money in the hands of people who were affected by the unlawful acts of the pharmaceutical companies. So I appreciate you bringing it to, but I don't think you could have a better advocate for our treatment and folks in recovery than Chief McCarrick. You also have me. We have other people who are involved in our recovery community and positions, and so I can tell you, we're going to be focused on that, getting in the money and the people in the hands of the people who need it. So thank you.
Thank you very much for bringing this to our attention. I too owe my life to Alcoholics Anonymous. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else from the public wishing to be heard on an item that's not on the agenda? Seeing no one, we will move to the expenditures. Deputy Mayor Murphy, would you please read the expenditures for January 28th, 2025?
Yes, the expenditures that I had previously stated were the total of $6,748,352.96. And the total is, grand total is $7,898,256.22.
All right, may I have a motion to approve the expenditures for January 28th, 2025?
So moved.
May I have a second, please?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 The expenditures for January 28th, 2025 have been approved. We have a few ordinances that need to be introduced tonight. Again, to remind folks, it's the introduction of the ordinance. This is not the public comment period for the ordinance. It's simply to introduce it. 2 weeks afterwards, there will be a hearing at which the public can opine upon and offer their comments. So, Madam Clerk, could you please read the title of Ordinance 2504?
An ordinance of the mayor and council of the Township of Sparta amending Chapter 18 entitled Comprehensive Land Management Code to amend portions of Section 18-4.36 entitled PDRM-2 Planned Development and Resource Management Area.
I make a motion that we approve and we introduce ordinance 2504.
And I will second the motion to introduce Ordinance 2504. And before we take a vote, I think this is a vestige from last term that we had intended to do this, but just sort of ran out of time. And I think, Councilman Blumetti, you have probably the most experience on council with respect to this particular ordinance. So we just educate the rest of us about what this ordinance is about.
Yeah, just a brief update. So the planning board looked into this last year. The intention was to make this zone, the PDRM2 zone, more consistent with the surrounding zones that were already addressed at that point. So really what this minor adjustment to this zoning will do is it adjusts down the maximum building size and certain other parameters around intensity of use. And it also adds the requirement of 3 different impact statements that have to come in with any application, an environmental impact statement, a traffic study, and a community impact statement. So that's the gist of it. It doesn't do a lot more than that, but it makes it more consistent with the surrounding areas. And the PDRM2 zone is a quite unique and specific zone that has a lot of protections in place already, just due to the dynamics of it and the number of lots. So going through this in multiple iterations, this is what the planning board got to and recommended as a needed improvement to the zoning here. Mind you, as the master plan work is underway and that comes around later this year, a land use element of the master plan is going to be looked at. So every zone is going to be evaluated and recommendations might come later on this year as well for other zones and this zone.
Is there currently a zone that has the same strictures as PDRM that we're proposing in PDRM2? Is there one that has? My understanding was there's already a zone that has to meet these criteria, and we're simply adding a zone that's, I think, close to it or near adjacent to it.
Yeah, it's not exact to any zone, but some of the elements that are being added are already reflected in the ED zone and the PDRM1 zone, which is right next to it. The PDRM2 zone, by the way, if you're going north on 15, you get to Houses Corner Road and make a right, heading east, I guess. PDRM1 zone is the immediate zone you'll run into. Further down is PDRM2 zone, and it has a lot of restrictions already in place, and there's only, I believe, 2 or 3 lots there.
Okay, any other council discussion on Ordinance 2504? Okay, seeing none, we've done a first and a second. Madam Clerk, may I have a roll call vote?
Councilman Scott,
Yes.
Councilman Blumetti,
Yes.
Councilman Chiarello,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Murphy,
Yes.
Mayor Clark.
Yes. So Ordinance 2504 is introduced. Madam Clerk, could you please read the title of Ordinance 2506?
Oh, 05?
Oh, 05, sorry. Yes, 05.
An ordinance of the mayor and council of the Township of Sparta amending Chapter 18 entitled Comprehensive Land Management Code to amend the definitions under Section 18.2 and to amend portions of the Section 18-4.31A entitled Planned Commercial Economic Development Zone, PCED.
I make a motion that we introduce ordinance 25-05.
I will second it.
Okay, and we'll take it back to council for discussion. Was this an ordinance that was introduced in the previous term,
Prior
term?
to that, yeah,
It was introduced in 2023.
August of '23.
Okay. And it was tabled, is that right?
Yes. It was
Okay.
tabled at that time due to unique circumstances that arose to allow more time to possibly look at whether any changes were needed to it.
Okay. All right, so we have a first and a second.
I can give a little summary of it.
Sure.
Sure. Okay. So this is, I feel strongly about this. The planning board spent a lot of time and effort looking at this zone. Like many of you, I and they wish to preserve the character of our town. You know, overdevelopment and ever-increasing traffic are major concerns. This ordinance would update that zone. It does not approve development in a place where it cannot exist already today. And so this is not an ordinance or a change or a vote to propose any additional development. This ordinance and this vote would activate stricter requirements and protections for that zone. So development can occur today at a larger scale than what this proposes. So the planning board, in looking at the exposure and the zones and the activity that was happening, chose this one to focus in on to tighten the control and better protect Sparta's quality of life and our natural resources. This ordinance 2505 would do the following. It lowers the intensity of use. It reduces the allowable building size. It lowers the allowable impervious surface, which is obviously areas that are covered by pavement and buildings. It creates a larger buffer area around the existing township wellhead in one area of this zone. It adds a significantly larger buffer zone of unbuildable area from the rear boundary of the property line, which would better protect the wetlands that sit back there. It also adds more restrictions around what is permitted versus what's conditional and prohibited. The prohibited list has increased. So it gives the planning board more latitude and more tools and more teeth to dig into an application to make sure it's appropriate. Just for a couple examples of the details, the max building size gets reduced from 40,000 square feet down to 25, which is similar to the other small buildings in that zone and in that area there. Impervious surface goes from 40% down to 30. The setback, as I mentioned, for the certain size lots goes from 50 feet to 300 feet in the rear to protect the wetlands that are back there. It also puts different uses into prohibited use. It makes 4 categories conditional. It adds new objectives around the environmental protection standards. Also, while it was being modified, there was enhancements and consistency made to some of the architectural standards, so how anything that goes there would look and feel. So there's a lot of changes that were made there that are improvements to what exists today. Again, this is one that, like the last one we just discussed, would add the requirement of environmental impact statement, traffic studies, community impact statements. It would, believe it or not, today, there's still the allowance for underground or underbuilding parking. This removes that. And it changes the size and look and feels of any signage that would go up there for something that might go in there. So again, this is not the be-all, end-all. The master plan work is underway. What was envisioned August of '23, so now, almost a year and a half ago, and still exists today, is the fact that this would dramatically improve the quality of life and the protection of resources there by reducing the intensity of use. And it was designed so that it would be consistent with our existing master plan. Again, the master plan will change later on this year, hopefully, but this would be consistent with that plan, so it would get an approval back in terms of being consistent with the MLUL. So that was just some highlights of what this ordinance would do.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. I think, just speaking for myself, the concern I have, frankly, are the amount of uses that are in this particular ordinance. Intensity of use is a function of the actual use that's allowable in the zone. And by my count, this ordinance has 16 separate permitted uses and 7 conditional uses. Some of them, and part of intensity of use is also a function of the traffic generated by that use. I think we've heard over time and time again, this zone is located on the most trafficked section of Sparta. It's also the section of Sparta that has, if my count is correct, the most accidents. I think it's up to like 315 last year. And we now have a phase 2 study that attributes a lot of those accidents to following too closely. And folks know you tend to follow too closely when there's traffic. And so I think there is a real concern, at least for me, about the safety, health, and welfare of adding, having these uses that do generate a substantial amount of traffic. For example, I think microbreweries here is a permitted use, which would generate, according to the Institute of Traffic Engineers, about 11.36 trips, whereas like an agricultural use is far less than that. And so I think to characterize this as lowering the intensity of use, I'm just not seeing it. And so I think that's the problem that I have with this particular ordinance is I think that, we've heard kind of loud and clear about the concerns on this corridor and continuing to have uses that generate a substantial amount of traffic that causes a substantial amount of accidents, I think would not be in the best interest, safety, health, and welfare of our community.
I would just answer that to say that you're talking about a master plan redo, which is what's happening. This factually reduces the intensity of use, so you might have the opinion it might not, but it factually, based on the parameters of this, would reduce the intensity of use, not to zero. Again, this is consistent with the master plan, so this would be something that is meets the MLUL and is legal to do. So I don't disagree. The be-all, end-all is to redo the master plan and reduce the intensity a lot more. This is meant to be a consistent update to the ordinance that is legal with MLUL, the municipal land use law, and will reduce the intensity of use, not to zero, but more than it is today.
Okay, thank you. All right, Madam Clerk, may we have a roll call vote?
Councilman Scott,
No.
Councilman Blumetti,
Yes.
Councilman Chiarello,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Murphy,
No.
Mayor Clark.
No. So ordinance 2505 is not introduced. Madam Clerk, could you please read ordinance 2506?
An ordinance of the mayor and council of the Township of Sparta amending Chapter 18 entitled Comprehensive Land Management Code to amend portions of Section 18-4.31A entitled Planned Commercial Economic Development Zone, PCED.
Okay, may I have a motion to adopt, not to adopt, a motion to introduce ordinance 2506?
I make a motion to introduce ordinance 2506.
May I have a second, please?
I second it.
Okay, I'll take it back to council. Now, this has a version, in the parens, it has a V2 PCD. Attorney Dash, can you explain why there's a V2?
I put that there because this is PCED, but there was one version so they would know of the other.
Okay.
It's just,
And how is this version different from the prior version?
So this version speaks to the request of the majority of the people of Sparta to limit the intensity of uses in what can be colloquially referred to as the Route 15 corridor. As you indicated earlier, intensity of use is tied to various detrimental factors such as traffic congestion and sprawl. which in turn diminished a rural character of an area. So the essence of this ordinance limits the uses in this area, PCED. It seeks to amend the current ordinance to allow for agriculture and recreational uses as is set forth in the ordinance. This ordinance will also be lawful in the sense that it will be complying with the municipal land use law, specifically Section 62, in which the courts and the legislator created a mechanism for governing bodies to pass what might be a prima facie inconsistency, but ultimately an inconsistency that reflects the overall will of the majority of the town and the governing body. And there is a very specific procedure that needs to be followed after this, if the ordinance is introduced. And the council will be, and my office will be prepared to follow that procedure to conform with the statute and accompanying case law.
And does that, my understanding, there has to be reasons for why we articulate, or why we're passing this ordinance. Does that come now, or does it come later at the hearing?
So the statute expressly provides that the reasons accompanying the inconsistency are set forth in a reasoned resolution that will accompany the time of the adoption of the ordinance at the time of the hearing. And those reasons, as will be provided in the resolution, will rely upon not just generalized opinions, but it'll rely upon expert and other reports that substantiate the basis for the inconsistency.
Thank you.
And that factual data, the requirements for this are extremely stringent in terms of it being factual data that has to justify going against the intention of the master plan. Is that data and factual evidence ready for us now or not yet?
Not yet.
But you're confident, without seeing it all yet, that that will be enough justification to protect us with this,
Correct.
even without it being ready and available for us to see?
It's in substantially completed form, just not in final form.
And who's producing that?
It's a collection of reports produced by the township engineer, township police department, and various other expert reports that have studied that area.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No other comment, then, Madam Clerk, can we have a roll call vote?
Councilman Scott,
Yes.
Councilman Blumetti,
No.
Councilman Chiarello,
No.
Deputy Mayor Murphy,
Yes.
Mayor Clark.
Yes. Ordinance 2506 is introduced. There will be a hearing on that ordinance in 2 weeks. All right, next up, we have hearings on certain ordinances. Madam Clerk, could you please read ordinance 2501?
Township of Sparta ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and to establish a cap bank.
Thank you. Now, is there any member of the public that wishes to be heard just on this ordinance, which is 2501? So your comments would be limited to ordinance 2501, which is the Township of Sparta ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and to establish a cap bank. Okay, we'll take it back to council for discussion and comments. I believe we discussed this ordinance at the last meeting, and so we can, refer back to the comments that were made for the purpose of this ordinance, why it was being introduced. I think equal apply here to the hearing. So I don't have for myself, any further discussion or comments. Does any of my fellow council members have any comments? Okay, seeing none, may I have a motion to adopt ordinance 2501?
So moved.
May I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Madam Clerk, may I have a roll call vote?
Councilman Scott,
Yes.
Councilman Blumetti,
Yes.
Councilman Chiarello,
Yes.
Mayor Murphy,
Yes.
I apologize, Deputy Mayor Murphy, and Mayor Clark.
Yes. So ordinance 2504 has been adopted. 2501, sorry.
It's okay.
Okay, Madam Clerk, could you please read the title of ordinance 2502?
An ordinance of the Township of Sparta amending Chapter 8 of the Township Code entitled Filming to establish a film committee.
Okay, I will now open it up for public comment. Anyone from the public wishing to be heard on ordinance 2502? Okay, seeing none, I'll take it back to council for discussion and comments. Any member of the council wishing to be heard on ordinance 2502?
I think it first needs to be motion put to the
Oh,
table.
you're right. Good point. Sorry. May I have a motion to, okay, that's out of
We are
order.
adopting ordinance.
Okay, may I have a motion to adopt ordinance 2502?
I make a motion to adopt ordinance 2502.
May I have a second, please?
I will second.
And before we go to roll call, is there any member of council wishing to be heard on adopting ordinance 2502?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is something we talked about last time in detail about this film committee. I have some questions and then a comment. I go back to the purpose is listed here, but of why it's needed. It seems like it's a marketing function, but how is it accomplished? Right? So it should be advisory. What will it do? So not a purpose or the goals, but what are its activities? What process? What framework? What does it do? That's still not answered. Around the role titles, I believe it should be consistent with every other township board or committee. I don't understand why there's unique titles without descriptions, right? So there's a chief administrator, but of what? There's a communications coordinator for what? What kind of communications wouldn't the township do that? So there's still all these open questions. And, there's voting members on here. It doesn't explain what they're voting on, what authority they actually have. So there's still these open questions that just weren't addressed. And,
Can we drill down into those individually? But finish your thought first.
okay. The rest is
Because I have
just,
some very pointed questions on that.
okay, the rest is just a statement, and I'm just going to share this. Everybody in the council already received this, as did our attorney. They're all aware of my views on the level of quality we need in thinking around things like this. It was 2 weeks ago I shared this. I'm not against bringing film activity to Sparta at all, and I'm not against the committee. But this ordinance is significantly lacking. I think we should have higher expectations for what we're producing up here, what product this council is producing. I think we can do better. It's a very thin version of an ordinance. It lacks basic elements, in my opinion, that any reasonable person, including you out there, would expect in an ordinance. The fact that I heard 2 weeks ago that 2 other towns have adopted this version is really irrelevant for Sparta. I think we should have a higher standard for completeness, for being specific. And I don't think it's hard. I'm confident we can do this. This is not rocket science. And I think we can do it without saddling the community the committee with bureaucracy. I think it could be simple and straightforward. This is not a social club. This is not a book club, a photography club, right? We're establishing an ordinance here that it contains almost no content besides a high-arching purpose and role titles, not even role definitions, role titles. And to me, that's not really a valid option. I'm not against this again. I think this ordinance, though, is extremely thin and it's insufficient. The ordinance and the committee and the ordinance overall, I think, will be a value add for Sparta. I've watched for the last year this being put together. I think it's a good idea. But this ordinance to create a committee is not time critical. And 2 weeks ago, I said in my email to everyone up here, we can take another week or two to make the ordinance right. This is not urgent. And I think we should make it respectable and impactful and have more clarity around it. I just think we need a higher bar in what we collectively produce up here. I'm not against the committee or definitely not against bringing films in here, but this a one page which really doesn't have much detail in there is just insufficient in my mind. So.
Just a question. Can you identify another non-statutory advisory committee that has the specifications that you're now applying to another advisory committee?
I'm sure I could, not right on the spot. But if they have voting members, I could find one. If they have role titles that are unique like these, I think I could find that.
So the answer is,
If about what they do, like what their purpose is, what their activities are, I can think of that. I could find one for you.
but the answer is no. You can't
Answer is
identify.
yes.
No, right now, can you identify, and you're on a committee, or you're on the Business Development Committee, can you identify in an adopting ordinance or an adopting resolution where the requirements that you are applying to this film committee are also applied to these other advisory committees?
Yeah. If you asked me 2 weeks ago when I sent this email out to everyone, I could have found it and listed it for you. But yeah, BDC, I think we worked on that last year for quite a while.
Very, very detailed, because we wanted to make sure that the Business Development Committee was focused on being an ombudsman for and an advocate for the current brick and mortar businesses that are here in Sparta. And we made sure that when we tightened up the ordinance that created that committee, that it was very focused on that.
So I would
I
say.
don't have the language in front of me now, but I remember distinctly, we actually had working sessions to come up with that before we actually crafted the
I
ordinance.
would say, Neil, the ones that we at least were involved in creating, yeah. I can't speak for ones that were created 8 years ago, but I imagine they do have some of this basic things.
So I've got some more
but
pointed
they're all
questions, but finish your thought, please.
Okay, but am I right that there are non-advisory, or there are advisory, non-statutory committees that don't have every role spelled out? Am I right about that?
No, I don't think so, because most of them have a chair and a
I don't
vice
even
chair,
know what role means, actually.
right? Most of them just have a chair and vice chair.
No, that specifies what the vice chair is supposed to do and what the chair is supposed to do. Is there an ordinance or a resolution that you can point to that specifies what that person does, what they're entitled to do, which seems to be the requirements that you are putting on this film
Yeah,
committee?
I am, because I can't point to it right now, but I'm sure they're there. But we're crafting this new, so we can do what we want here. We can make this quality. These aren't unreasonable questions.
And
I'm not criticizing the committee. What do they do, right? What's their activity? What's their process? These fancy role titles, they should be defined. So if somebody wants to volunteer someday as a chief administrator, it'll say, okay, what do I need to do as an administrator of what, right? A coordinator of what? Like, what am I voting on? If there's a voting member, what are they voting on? And what authority do they have? Because if I'm voting to approve this ordinance, I want to know what authority I'm giving anybody out there to vote on. So I don't think that's unreasonable. And I know you're questioning me like I'm on the stand, but can I find one this moment? No, but the ones that we created, at least in the last 2 years, I think probably are more specific and are clean.
So can I build on that and start off with 8-13.2, the voting members? What are they voting on?
They are voting on how to advise the town manager about an application for film that has come in. And so whether to say, Mr. Manager, we think you should approve this, or Mr. Manager, we think you should not approve it, and here are the reasons. Again, they have no authority to authorize a film. They're simply voting on whether to, when they have to advise Mr. Zepp, which is required under the pre-existing ordinance 2513, what they intend to recommend and why. So that's what they're voting on. What this does is it takes off the administrative burden from the township. So otherwise, what would happen is a township official would have to run down a bunch of information about the applicant that may or may not be included in the application or need some explanation. And so the role of this committee is to simply vet that with people who have experience in the industry, as opposed to, no disrespect to our fine staff that we have in Sparta Township. I'm not familiar with anyone on our staff who has worked in the entertainment industry and can actually speak to some of the requirements that, entertainment production provides. So that's what they're doing. But again, just to reiterate, they don't have any authority to approve or disapprove an application. That authority remains vested in our township manager in consultation with Chief McCarrick, our fire department, and others.
So they're voting to approve a recommendation, and coming back to the purpose, to attract and encourage film production. I don't see those two things as being consistent, but you do mention that that function was included in Ordinance 24.13. So that answers that question about what business they'll conduct. One of the, it goes on to say that these people have a term for 3 years or until the appointment of a qualification of their successors. Where's the qualification here? How does one qualify to be a chairman or a first assistant chair or a second chair? So I don't know how I would apply that standard to this ordinance. If I want to apply to be the chair, based on what qualifications would I be a chairperson? I don't understand why there's a qualification, why that's even mentioned in here, that people have to be qualified to be the chair or the vice chair or the third assistant chair.
Mayor, if I could answer that. Sure. This ordinance simply is establishing a film committee. If you compare this ordinance to some of the other recreational non-statutory boards, in fact, you'll find very similar language with respect to the appointment and qualification of their successors.
What other boards have chairs and assistant, first assistant chair and second assistant chair? I've never heard those terms in any board.
I'll refer you, Councilman, to our E-code book that will provide for similar references. But let me just add that there is no requirement in this ordinance or in any ordinance that every single aspect of a term or definition be articulated. A committee can subsequently create a policy or its bylaws to spell out what each of the terms and the titles are going to their duties will be. For example, the last ordinance that the council passed or introduced uses the term conditional use. That's not defined in the ordinance. In fact, what you have is administrative codes and subsequent policies that will explain. This ordinance actually could have been introduced as part of the initial film ordinance and would have been merely a paragraph, as it is as we've indicated in 2 other townships. The specificity that you are seeking is not required by law, and it will and can be, as the committee seems appropriate, explained by either a bylaw or a policy of the film committee. But as far as this provides a framework for the committee's existence, subject to how the committee wishes to operate going forward.
I think I'm arguing exactly the opposite. I think I'm arguing for less specificity. I don't understand what the purpose is of having first chairs and second chairs. And then it goes on to say that it has a term of 3 years until the appointment and qualification of a successor. So that seems to imply that somebody stays in a term beyond 3 years until a qualified successor comes along. Again, I'm arguing the opposite. There's just way too much specificity in here for what I see what this committee could do in terms of attracting and encouraging film. But we don't have to belabor that too much more. Those are my concerns with that part. 8.13.2b identifies positions on the boards. With these also, I'm arguing the opposite, too much specificity about these skill sets. I don't understand why these skill sets would be needed. What would a chief creative ambassador do? Or why is one even necessary? Why is a communications coordinator and chief administrator, and I don't know why these things are necessary. And again, it goes on to say that these people will serve for 3 years, and until somebody meets the qualification, I don't know what a qualification of a chief creative ambassador would be. Again, just the opposite of specificity. I think this is almost silly in how that's laid out. I don't understand what the specificity is for these non-voting members. Can anybody explain that?
Respectfully, Dan, are you done?
Yeah, I asked a question. If you can answer it, that'd be great.
Well, it wasn't necessary for purposes of to specify exactly the bets and bounds and parameters of what these titles have. I think that this was what the committee, having met, decided should be the titles. I think that they've met for close to 9 months, and they came on those criteria. I don't think it's necessary either to go beyond the specifications nor to explain within the body of the ordinance exactly what all this involves. And I think I would ask the question from you is, what is the evil or the concern or the risk that you are raising with why, either lack of specification? What are you trying to prevent, or what are you trying to accomplish?
I think it's just so poorly worded, this thing, that it ties itself in knots, and it almost seems unadministratable. Unadministrable. I don't know how you pronounce where the accent is, because again, with those titles, it says you serve for 3 years until a qualification of a successor. What if the chief communications coordinator leaves? Do I have to wait until somebody who has that qualification of a chief communication coordinator comes along? My point is, again, echoing what Councilman Bellamy said, it's almost silly in the way that it gets into this detail. It becomes unworkable, again, tying itself in knots. But we don't need to belabor that anymore, if you don't like. I had a couple of other questions. Will this committee meet in public and publish minutes?
Yes, we do meet in public. As Councilman Chiarello knows, we are still awaiting I think last term, we had worked on a, code of conduct and requirement for our non-statutory boards. As of yet, we don't have one. And so I think once we do, whatever that is, that will equally apply to this film committee.
Okay. And thank you. And the reason I bring that up is again, as you alluded to earlier, that this ordinance 24-13 that passed last year specifies that that this committee needs to review and respond within 5 days of any application that comes in. And I don't see how the committee can assemble itself and meet in public, announce the public meeting, and then hold a review, and then write a report, and then, vote on it. The 3 people vote on it within a 5-day period. And I spoke about, so I don't understand how those two things can be reconciled, that you can meet and have a regularly scheduled public meeting and then be constrained to provide an opinion or a report within 5 days of receipt by the manager. So how would that work?
Well, I think the issue would be whether you would have to convene a public notice of the meeting, or you could just, you have 48 hours, so you would simply, from the date of the application, you have, 5 days, and so you would simply do a 48-hour notice, which still gives you 3 days. And again, it's not like these applications are going to be coming in. I mean, maybe they will, but more than likely, we're one of 562 municipalities. And there has been film production in Sparta long before this ordinance came along. We're simply trying to bring some type of measure of process to it, some degree of encouragement in light of what the state is doing. So I do think we can still comply, assuming that a notice would be required within the 5-day period.
So Monday, the notice comes in, and sometime during the day, the first chair receives the notice and calls a meeting, and the clerk on Tuesday advertises the meeting with 48 hours. So Wednesday, Thursday, there's a meeting on Friday, as the public is invited. Perhaps the applicant is there because the applicant has a vested interest in this. And by the end of the business day on Friday, that person has to write a report or recommendation and approve it. That's how this will work?
Well, one, I don't think that every non-statutory committee, they've had meetings where I don't think they've even published. Am I right, Roxanne, that there's?
We can list we have the agenda of meetings that we have at reorg, and then we list that with the newspapers, and it gives dates. And that's what the dates are, and they're on the website under the calendar.
So these will be ad hoc meetings because we don't know if the application is going to line up with a previously scheduled meeting.
Well, am I right, though, there are meetings that occur by our non-statutory boards that haven't been published in the paper, and, there's a need arises, and so the committee meets, and they don't publish a notice of that. Am I right?
Right, they would just coordinate with, the committee, but we do list any meetings like specific, rec department, the senior advisory, those meetings are listed on our website. If there's another meeting that needs to be called, they would coordinate that with their committee members.
But this is unique in that this is providing input into a decision whether or not a business can operate in Sparta. I would think if I'm an applicant and I have some body, some organization that has some influence over whether or not I can work in Sparta, I think that applicant would be interested in visiting and making the case. And I laid out in the last meeting that all the two statutory boards that deal with this stuff have very, very strict objective standards on how to evaluate applications. And they're, people are often represented by attorneys. We have our own attorney. There's a very, very strict code of conduct that comes through here. And before a board can approve a business operating in here, this just falls I don't see the controls here. I don't see the, I think if I were a business and I found out that this board said, no, I don't recommend that this business be allowed to operate here and film in this town, I think I would have a problem with the way this is structured. We don't have to belabor it. That's my concern. Whether or not it's addressed or not is I guess, relevant. You had something to say?
Yes. Mayor, I'd like to address some of the comments by Councilman Plumetti and Chiarello. In reviewing the Environmental Commission ordinance that's set forth in our E-code book, it in fact does not have qualifications for its members.
Yeah, but those members are typical volunteers, right? They don't
Well,
need,
but
these
the
are
or-
specifically named titles.
But the qualification is that there are no qualifications, number one. And number two, it has the identical language until the appointment and qualification of their successors.
Yeah,
Now,
that's bad language, too.
if we are to compare that, and that's the Environmental Commission that has arguably a more significant role, perhaps, in the township. And so the criticism, respectfully, when you compare it to the Environmental Commission statute, which has been on the books for a number of years, I think is unwarranted, number one. Number two, the review of the township code, if I'm looking at the current code, does not even have an ordinance for the Business Development Committee that I'm able to see presently.
But maybe,
that
maybe
actually
it
gets
hasn't
to,
been updated.
and it gets to my point.
passed it
The
last year.
Environmental Commission doesn't have a chief native plant coordinator and a chief communications officer. It just has citizen volunteers. There is no need for qualifications. It's helpful. We've operated without one, but it is helpful for the commission to have an environmental engineer, but it's not required. Again, that's exactly my point. There are no specific roles to fill. Therefore, there is no need for specific qualifications and language for them. This board is different for some reason. I still don't understand why.
With all due respect, Councilman Chiarello, this board has been operating for 9 months. They've been making tremendous progress in bringing and making film ready awareness here in Sparta. And it was you that said that they are operating without an ordinance. And it was you that wanted the ordinance. And here's the ordinance. And now you're saying there's too many restrictions.
Because it's a
And
bad ordinance.
I just don't know, let's just get on with it. I make a motion that we,
We're still having a
We already
discussion.
did. We already did
Yeah,
make
we had
that
a-
motion.
we had a motion.
So maybe if a lot of my concerns are about the way it operates within the 5 days review and operating in public, and having input into the approval of somebody operating a business in town. So I think a lot of my concerns, almost all of them, would be allayed if we made one simple change to remove that condition that any application be sent to the board for approval. So I would make a motion to amend this so that we would amend Section 8.3D that would remove reference to the Film Ready Committee as a party that has to provide input into whether or not the application is approved. So I'll make that motion.
Dan, just to clarify, you're suggesting we amend, not this ordinance that's up for tonight, the original ordinance that we passed last year?
But the original was passed last year, but that ordinance identified specifically in Section 8.3. This thing amends 8.13 and I think mostly 8.13. A different ordinance, I know we're using the ordinance for two different things, but the ordinance 24.13 modifies our code section 8.3D. I made a motion that we remove, just to make a couple of remove a couple of words from that section 8.3D to remove reference to the Sparta Film Ready Committee as a party that would provide input into the approval of applications for a business here.
I mean, but that provision was based upon an already adopted ordinance. Am I
Right, and we'll change it with, if we make an amendment to this ordinance, we would change that. Just like we made a bunch of changes to other ordinance today.
So your motion is to,
Right, just take
Amend
them
the-
out of the process of being a part of the approval process, even if it's advisory to the approval process of new business operating here. And I think that allays almost all of my concerns, because then the film to do what it wants to do is attract and encourage film.
And get rid of voting members then.
And it wouldn't need voting members. I mean, you can leave that language in there, as Attorney Dash said. It doesn't really, I mean, the committee can establish its own rules, and if they want to have titles for things, sure. I think if we get them out of the approval process, that would eliminate a lot of risk that we might have if an applicant gets rejected and feels that the Sparta Film Ready Committee had a hand in that and might expose us to problems. So I've made that motion. I'll stop here.
Yeah, I think with these free-spirited, creative gentlemen that have been working on this for so long, they should have some more rules on them.
I'm not making any qualification about the members of that committee. I think
So-
they're all wonderful people.
Let's vote on this.
So first I made the motion. If it's not seconded, then we can move on.
I'll second it.
okay, there's a motion, a second to amend an ordinance, so we need a roll call vote.
Can I just ask for clarification on what exactly you're amending from 25-02?
It's section 8.3D was referenced in the Film Ready Committee in the ordinance 24-13. It modified section 8.3D, and there was language, and if I were smart, I would have had the language exactly in front of me, and I can provide it later, that says that it lists the number of people that would receive an application when it comes in, and one of the manager, the police chief, there might be others, and one of the parties that receives an application is the Sparta Film Ready Committee. Now, just remove that one piece of language. If you give me like 48 seconds, I can probably call it up.
But it sounds like you're
I'm not,
amending
yeah,
ordinance
I don't,
24-13.
that's not part of this ordinance, though.
So we'd have to insert a statement in here that changes that, amends that.
We would have to amend that ordinance,
Yeah.
introduce, to
Yeah, you'd have to-
amend an ordinance for him to be able to
Okay.
put that in there.
Post-adopted.
That's
We
the way
could do
the way to
that.
do it.
We would
So
have to do
I'll
that.
modify my request to make a motion to place on the agenda for the next meeting an ordinance change to 24.13 that would remove the reference to the Film Ready Committee as a party for approving applications.
But that will affect this ordinance, correct? I mean,
It would have a downward effect on this ordinance. How that is structured legally, I'll leave that to Attorney Dash.
I think we can take a vote on it. Let's take a
On the-
vote
on-
on this amendment,
on
No,
the-
it's not
The
the
council
amendment, or
on-
he.
Can't do the-
the introduction.
You mean on the adoption of this ordinance?
He wants to introduce an amendment to the current ordinance for the film
I
committee.
think his last statement was, though, he wants to move to allow for an introduction for the amending 2413 for the reason. So I think the motion is to simply put on the agenda.
For introduction.
Introduction.
Introduction to the next
Okay, so
meeting.
that- yeah, that's-
February the 11th, and we would have that. So then this one, you're going to,
We'll come back.
We'll come back to it. Yes.
We'll come back to this after.
Yeah, depending on how the vote shakes out.
okay.
And I have the language in front of me, but we can proceed with the vote.
Okay. Okay. So this, what you're about to vote on is an amendment to bring that, to introduce an amendment at the next meeting.
Correct.
Okay.
And the introduction, the amendment would
Would-
remove the stipulation that this committee has voting authority to dictate what comes to the town manager.
Right, I'll read the language if it's helpful. So ordinance 24.13, section 8D reads in the first two sentences. The township manager or the municipal clerk shall send a copy of the application in either written or electronic form to the chief of the Sparta Police Department, the chief of the Sparta Fire Department, each township council member, the Sparta Township Council member that sits on the Sparta Township Film Ready Committee, SFRC, shall be responsible for sending the application to members of the SFRC. The above parties shall provide any questions or concerns with the issuance of the permit within 5 days, and blah, blah, blah. So this would just modify that first sentence to remove reference to sending the application on to the Sparta Film Ready Committee.
Okay.
And as we said, that we'll adjudicate this through a separate ordinance that we would introduce at the next meeting.
Councilman Scott,
No.
Councilman Blumetti,
Yes.
Councilman Chiarello,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Murphy,
No.
Mayor Clark.
No. Motion to amend or to put on the agenda has failed. We're now at a roll call for ordinance 2502.
I just have a comment, one last comment. With all respect, Attorney Dash, I'm not really concerned about precedent with the EC statute or how it's written. If that's wrong, let's change it. Let's make it better. I go back to my opening comment that what we produce here needs to be high quality and at least understandable enough and specific enough. I think this is still severely lacking. And if we need to change every other non-advisory group out there, let's go through that and make it right. That doesn't justify this.
Just to respond, I'm not suggesting that the Environmental Commission ordinance is not adequate. I believe it is. I believe it is adequately drawn.
Yeah. The nature of that, those duties are understood, correct?
How is it understood if you're reading this language? If you're
No,
not,
for Environmental Commission.
no, even, I'm referring to the environment. How would the duties of the Environmental Commission be understood by virtue of reading the ordinance alone?
Because the Environmental Commission ordinance lists all the duties and responsibilities of the Environmental Commission. There's like 10 of them.
No, but the qualifications of the members are not set forth.
Yeah, but the members need to do those
don't have
activities and
qualifications.
processes, right? They don't have
It's
qualifications.
by statute, because there's a statute that speaks to it.
Yeah,
And that's a statutory committee.
correct.
We're dealing with a very different
True, but
framework.
that does, well, maybe that's not a good comparison then, but, so if we need to fix the advisory ones, our non-statutory, let's fix them. Let's just put some activities so people know what they do. It's not that we don't need this, it's just,
Okay, I think we're up to a roll call vote.
Councilman Scott,
Be crystal clear, we're voting on the ordinance
20,
as
yeah.
it's in front of us.
Yes.
Unamended
2502.
as introduced.
Yes.
Councilman Blumetti,
no.
Councilman Chiarello,
No.
Deputy Mayor Murphy,
Yes.
Mayor Clark.
Yes, ordinance 2502 has been passed. Next up, Madam Clerk, could you please read the title of ordinance 2503?
Ordinance authorizing the lease between the Township of Sparta and Sparta Ecumenical Council on senior citizen housing in accordance with the New Jersey Local Lands and Buildings Law.
Okay, we are now up to the public comment period with respect to ordinance 2503. Is any member of the public wishing to be heard on ordinance 2503? All right, seeing none, I'll take it back to council for discussion and comments, and I will refer council to the discussion that we had 2 weeks ago with respect to the introduction. I think those equally apply. So unless anyone else has any comments or discussion, I will then ask for a motion to adopt ordinance 2503.
I move that we adopt ordinance 25-03.
May I have a second,
A
please?
second?
May I have a roll call vote, Madam Clerk?
Councilman Scott,
Yes.
Councilman Blumetti,
Yes.
Councilman Chiarello,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Murphy,
Yes.
Mayor Clark.
Yes. Ordinance 2503 has been adopted. We are now at our second open to the public comment period. This period is with respect to resolutions. So if you look at the resolutions and you have a comment on them, you may speak. If you have a comment on something other than resolutions, I respectfully ask that you wait until our final open public comment period near the end. Thank you.
Is there any chance, I guess I missed my shot for the public, because I actually, now that you guys have talked about zones and clarification, I had something to add.
There's a spot at the end of the agenda.
All right. We're not going
that
to
comment.
have more.
Actually, that should be at the hearing in 2 weeks, right? If it's about ordinances.
I don't think, it was just about you guys are clearing things out. I got
If it
a
doesn't have
sick
to-
kid at home. I'd love,
Yeah.
if there's going to be more belaboring, I'd just love to make a quick comment.
I think just to,
But, okay.
I don't mean to stand on ceremony or protocol, but I think
No, after
the
last
comment you want to
time.
make is one that you're entitled to make. I think the best time to do it is at the final public comment period, because it doesn't fall within resolutions, so. So any member of the public wishing to be heard with respect to resolutions? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to resolutions. We will do some together and others separate. So I would like to make a motion that we approve Resolution 9-1, Resolution 9-2, and Resolution 9-6. So may I have a motion to approve Resolutions 9-1, 9-2, and 9-6?
I make a motion to approve resolutions 9-1, 9-2, and 9-6.
All right, may I have a second, please?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Resolutions 9-1, 9-2, 9-6 have been approved. I'd next like to make a motion would like someone to make a motion to approve Resolution 9-3, which is a resolution of the Township of Sparta establishing a procedure for public comment before the Sparta Township Council.
What does that mean?
So do we have a motion for Resolution 9-3?
I will make a motion that we approve Resolution 9-3.
May I have a second, please?
I will second that.
Okay, and I'll take it back to council before we go to a vote. This, am I right, Attorney Dash, this is to simply establish a time limit for the public comment, similar to what we had last year of 5 minutes?
That's correct.
Okay. And so I will, just speaking for myself, I was initially one who was not in favor of such a time limit, but I think the 5 minutes gave adequate time for people. We have a lot of business this township has to do. I think that it didn't seem to constrain people's ability to speak on matters. So I think that, I wanted to signal that I have changed my position with respect to this. I think it has functioned. I think 5 minutes, and this is similar to what most other towns do put some type of time limit involved. And I know we all have important business that we want to do with respect to, this council. And so I think the 5 minutes is adequate time. So with that, I'll shut up and we can move to a vote unless someone else wants to say something. Okay. So may all those in favor of Resolution 9-3 say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no.
No.
So we have 4 yeses and 1 no for Resolution 9-3. May I have a motion to approve Resolution 9-4?
I move that we approve Resolution 9-4, authorizing the display of the Pan-African flag during the first week of February to recognize Black History Month.
May I have a second, please?
I will second.
And I'll take, and this is a flag that we did fly last year, am I right?
Correct.
Okay, got you. So
Flag that we already have on hand. I purchased it,
all right,
donated to the town.
okay, all those in favor of Resolution 9-4 say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Resolution 9-4 has passed. May I have a motion to approve Resolution 9-5, which is a resolution for Sparta Township pursuant to the amended Fair Housing Act, committing the township to Round 4, present and prospective need, affordable housing obligations.
I move that we approve Resolution 9-5.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Okay, I'll take it back to council. Any council person wishing to be heard on Resolution 9-5. Okay, I will, this is for the public. Again, we have a deadline of Friday to submit the township's President's Prospective Need Affordable Housing Obligations. We have enlisted separate counsel to advise us on both the legal requirements, and then also we have enlisted our planner, Catherine Sarmad. We've had a number of discussions, executive, about the legal requirements and the legal obligations, and I want to commend our special counsel for the Fair Housing, Steve Warner, and also Catherine Sarmad, who've done very diligent work here, and they were able to have a justifiable basis for reducing Sparta Township's present need that the DCA had of initially said 427 units through using a generally acceptable methodology and sources spelled out in statutes, and otherwise they have reduced that down to 311 units. And so there's a lot more to do on this. There's a whole bunch of other deadlines and other things that I will not belabor here, so they'll come up at the appropriate time. But I just wanted to take the opportunity to say that all council here has been very, very engaged on this and have asked a lot of pointed questions and done the best that we could to meet our obligation and then have a legally defensible basis upon which to justify our reduction. And so we will meet the deadline and then we'll see what happens from there. So with that, I will then ask for all those in favor of passing Resolution 9-5, say aye. Aye. All right, Resolution 9-5 has passed. And I think that does it for the resolutions. Okay, next up are the council liaison updates. And so I will start to my far left. Councilman Scott, do you have any updates to the council, for any of the committees for which you serve as a liaison?
Honestly, none of my committees have met yet.
Okay, well, once they do, you can enlighten us about what's going on there.
Super. Thank you.
Councilwoman, or Deputy Mayor Murphy.
The environmental meeting I went to, they had a great suggestion of the development out on White Lake Road, the new building that's going up that was just put through. I don't remember the name of it, on White, that you suggest using pavers to put down in their parking lot. They were asking for less parking spaces and, but they wanted to build a higher building. And they suggested using pavers out there, which is a great idea. And there is I believe there's a trail walk on February 17th.
We are, I didn't know that date, that's news to me.
Okay.
So I think we were discussing it. I don't think we picked a date yet, but,
Okay.
I'll have to circle back to our Trails Committee, which I updated the council on last time because we had already had a meeting. We haven't had a meeting since our last meeting, so I didn't really have much.
Okay,
Yeah.
they're impervious pavers. And also to make 2025 the year to build out Chapter 25, which has to deal with buffer zones, native plants, tree ordinances, artificial turf, dark skies, and green infrastructure stormwater management. So if we look at Chapter 25 and get more specific on that, and they are getting some speakers coming in that will talk on different plantings that are much better for our environment for up here. And I will let you know those dates and who is coming.
Fantastic.
Okay?
Margie, I would just add to that, part of that work probably could be blended into the master plan work. So I know Neil Sauerwein is on the master
Master
plan
plan
subcommittee.
committee.
So some of those implications, some of those, that vision could be built into the master plan too, for sure.
Perfect. Okay. So yes, and with the pavers out on the building, out on White Lake Road, and I don't remember the building that's going out there, it's not for, it's strictly for contractors. But they are over on impervious coverage, so if they did pavers too, it would lessen the impervious coverage. If it's not too, and we can discuss that with them.
Okay, any other updates
And
besides
that's-
Environmental Commission?
No, I haven't had another
Okay.
meeting with any other.
Okay, before one request that I got from our recreation, the head of recreation, Gene Montemiro, is about, we do need people to fill some positions on our rec committee. And so we are looking to fill some open positions, so we would encourage folks to go on the Sparta website and fill out the volunteer application form and use the drop-down menu and find Recreation Committee and sign up for that. And they're specific with what we're looking for. We're looking for individuals with an interest in helping to enhance our meaning recreational department special events, investigate new programs, and offer support to recreation offerings of the township. The Recreation Advisory Committee meets approximately every other month. The department offers many special events during the year where Recreation Committee members are needed. If you are interested in a position on the Recreation Advisory Committee, please fill out the volunteer form on the township website. Interested individuals will be interviewed. The Township Council appoints the members of the Recreation Advisory Committee. So I will encourage folks to apply to this committee. This really is a committee that, dictates a lot of what we enjoy in Sparta. For example, many of you may have attended the celebration, the tree lighting that we have. Well, that's the Recreation Committee that puts that on, and they need folks to help that out. There's a lot of logistics involved, and, it ends up falling on the staff of the Recreation Department, and they only have much time in the day and so many hands, and so they could really use some additional help. Also, isn't the winter celebration this weekend? That's another event that they put on that we enjoy. Again, they could use help with volunteers who are willing to help out with that. That's something that the public really enjoys. And so you will have an opportunity to improve and enhance the quality of life for your neighbors. And I can't think of a better, opportunity. So again, I encourage people to apply. And we haven't had our meeting yet. We're looking to, and they needed to get through this winter carnival celebration. And then we hope that we will be able to meet soon with additional members who will be appointed. So that's the rec department update. For the Trails Committee, I alluded to this last time, that there was some leftover grant money for, I think, Sustainable New Jersey that our Environmental Commission made us aware of. We now have to perfect the execution of where we can take those funds and then apply it. So you will see a resolution in about 2 weeks enabling us to do that, and that is going to go to, I believe, signage, improved signage at pardon?
Yonkers?
At Yonkers. And so we've gotten quotes, and so we'll be able to use that. Again, I thank Neil Sauerwein of the Environmental Commission to bring that to our attention. We have not yet met I'm also a liaison to Lake Mohawk. We are in the process of setting up that. We just have to get mutually convenient dates. And then our film committee has not met yet because we're awaiting, we had to get through the ordinance passage, but we will be setting up a meeting. The Revolutionary 250 Committee is meeting next Monday, and we'll also be reaching out to certain stakeholders in Sparta And I thank Lynn Leitner from that committee for helping spearhead that. And again, our Trails Committee will meet next month, and, we'll have, I think, but the main thing, we've been trying to figure out how we can use this gift of money that was provided to us for improved signage, and then we're still working on coming up with some trail recommendations for improvement in Sparta. And with that, that concludes my council liaison updates.
Just a quick note on the Business Development Committee. Mark and I are working with Roxanne to identify a conference room space for the monthly meetings for the rest of the year. Once we secure that and we have a place, we have times in mind, but we'll be contacting the BDC members with the schedule and getting that going.
From my updates, I have only one. The Sister City Committee met yesterday. And I will also share that our Greek counterparts have formed their own sister committee to work with us, and we will soon get these two committees linked up and working together. Part of what we're doing for our 2026 conference here is inviting all of the municipalities named Sparta around the world to come join us in Sparta, New Jersey. And to that end, I want to send greetings to the people of Sparta, Georgia. I had a nice discussion with Mayor Alan Haywood today. Seemed like a great guy, and I look forward to meeting him in person. And Mayor Haywood is looking forward to coming out to Sparta, New Jersey, and being part of our celebration. And that's all I have.
All right, thank you. Okay, under Councilman Chiarella, do you have any unfinished or new business?
Just one thing, I want to recognize and congratulate former Councilwoman Christine Quinn on her appointment to the board of the Sussex County Community College Board of Trustees. And that's all I have.
I had the pleasure of attending the ambulance squad banquet, the annual banquet recently, and just wanted to say it was an honor to attend. And I wanted to thank our ambulance squad for their professionalism and their commitment and dedication to keeping our communities safe and secure. So I had a nice night. Many of you were there.
Thank you. Yeah, I
Was.
did attend the Sparta Ambulance Squad. Again, those are frontline workers and they're volunteers, and they save lives every day. And we're the professionalism of them, the camaraderie that they have, it's really something to behold. And we are very, very fortunate in Sparta to have the Sparta Ambulance Squad. And they do accept donations. And so I encourage folks to, realize the important role that they play, and they do need resources, and so I encourage folks to donate to them. Also, on Saturday, I attended the ribbon cutting for it's a business that's been in town, but it's expanded, Apres Wellness and Beauty Salon, which is located right near across from the Sparta Diner. This is a unbelievable business. They have all kinds of spa treatment, like laser treatment, all kinds of things. It's really something that you would see in probably Los Angeles. We have right here in Sparta. And so I was very happy to see that business and do the ribbon cutting there. And so that was really neat to see. We love having businesses open in Sparta. Small business really is the lifeblood of this township. And so when one comes along, I encourage people to check them out and to patronize it. Another unfinished business, now that we've adopted the ordinance for the film committee, I need to make a motion to appoint certain members to the film committee. And so I will make a motion to appoint the following individuals. And these are individuals who we were able to verify have submitted an application. If we were unable to, if you're here and you don't hear your name listed, that might be because we couldn't find your actual application to be as a part of this committee. So they are Kevin Ali, Robert Boyle, Angela DeLucia, Frank Dolce, Joseph Garcetti, Justin Karpowicz, Scott Landy, Sean Landy, Roy McDonald, Kevin Salmiri, George Segali, and Daniel Wilkinson. So the motion is to appoint the following individuals I just listed to the Sparta Film Committee.
Are you identifying their roles? Because it looks like the ordinance we just passed says that those roles need to be identified by the council, the appointments made by the council. The 3 voting members, the 4 non-voting members.
Oh, I can, so the Frank Dolce will be the, trying to find it in here, the chairperson. The first assistant chair will be Justin Karpowicz, and the second assistant will be Roy McDonald.
And also the 4 non-voting members are also appointed by the council to specific,
Everyone else is a non-voting member.
right, but those appointments are made by the council for those specific positions, right? So are those filled by specific people here tonight? The creative ambassador, the chief administrator, the communications coordinator.
And the chief creative ambassador will be Kevin Ali, and the communications coordinator is Sean Landy.
And I see chief administrator.
And he's also the chief administrator.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
And everyone else is a general non-voting committee member.
Correct. Okay, so I just need a motion to appoint the following individuals and the specific roles that I outlined.
I make a motion to appoint the individuals you just named. And
All right, may I have a second?
I will second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, congratulations, you've been appointed to the Film Committee. Do I have any other unfinished business? No, I do not. So, any unfinished or new business? Okay. Councilman Scott? Okay. Okay, we are now up to the final public comment period. This is, doesn't have to be a resolution, doesn't have to be an ordinance, it's whatever you want to address to the council. So it's your time to shine, Mr. Otto.
I'm just as a private citizen here. So I had, since it seemed you guys were doing, sorry, I'm just trying to find it now. Since you guys were going through all that zoning stuff, I had noticed something because suddenly I'm interested in all that stuff. And so I just wanted to direct your attention. I don't know how it happened, but it seems like there's a mistake. If you look at the zoning map, White Deer Plaza, a lot of Winona, a lot of West Shore Trail, and the low numbers is Town Center Commercial Zone. And I just want to read from Sparta's own code, Comprehensive Land Code 18-4.21C-1H, Community Commercial Historic Zone. The purpose, this zone is designed to provide for community commercial use with preservation of the historic value of the commercial zone. The goal of the historic preservation of the district is intended to accomplish the following. Accomplish the protection, enhancement, and perpetuation of the Lake Mohawk Plaza area, which has been designated as a historic landmark, and other structures and resources within the central business district, which reflect the elements of the architectural history of the township. So I'm not going to read 2, 3, 4, 5B, 1, 2, 3, but you guys can look. Again, it's 18-4.21C-1H, Community Commercial Historic Zone. If you compare that to the zoning map, it just seems like there's a mistake here, but basically there's a whole area that's in this green area that impinges, includes the boardwalk, the country club, the sunken garden, lakeside and hillside lots that are clearly meant to be protected for the historic preservation of Lake Mohawk and surrounds. So I think it's just an easy fix, but I don't know if Mr. Zepp maybe could take a look at it.
Yeah, our town engineer, Corey Stoner, he's the one who put the latest zoning maps together. We can look into it for accuracy and check your call out. No problem.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Thank you
Mr.
very
Otto.
much.
Thank you for drawing that to our attention. Any other member of the public wishing to be heard?
Don't steal my 8 seconds.
And you may want to, Beth, not to, bring down the mic.
Sure.
I'm not making fun of you. I'm just saying that we want to hear you.
I don't need a mic. Beth Broderick, North Shore. I just have 2 really easy questions, kind of sort of with Rob. There's a gas station / repair guy on West Shore. Is there something on the record somewhere that addresses the number of cars without license plates on his parking lot, and also the number of cars in general that are there? Because I've noticed and I've documented a car with on a trailer attached to an SUV for several days, parked on West Shore, and also moved over to his parking lot. After hours, there's a green pickup with New York plates that's in and out of his parking lot. And there's been a lot of cars on West Shore, and I'm just not sure if there's guidelines for the number of cars and where the cars are. And there's also vehicles without license plates, like a white beat-up pickup right at the edge of the lot. It's becoming a little dangerous when there's a lot of cars there, and people are driving down West Shore, and tow trucks are dropping cars off, and you can't see pulling out of the parking lot. So I was just wondering if there's something on file with guidelines for line of sight and cars and stuff like that before.
So if you're asking me that.
I'm just asking in general, like, I don't know.
Zoning.
Okay.
Issue on that, and I know, I'll follow up with our zoning officer. I don't know the specific, amount of cars that are allowed in that business. So I'll follow up with Annie Caccio.
Okay, because my
Thank
thing
you,
with
Chief.
getting run
That's
over and dead by
exactly what I was
Pepsi
gonna say.
trucks and stuff like that, and since it's gonna start to get busy when the warmer weather comes in, that area's already busy, especially with ski hawks and stuff like that. And my other question is for you, with the traffic report in phase 2, I noticed with North Shore, it said there was like 1 accident. Sorry, there was like 1 accident for North Shore in that timeline. But I have documentation of cars going through fences, cars landing on property, like personal property and fences, and taking out telephone poles. But it said 1 accident in that time frame, and I have documentation of 3. On the report, it said something with property. So would like a car going through a fence on the S-curve go under property? I'm just
It depends about the amount of damage, whether it would be a motor vehicle crash or a motor vehicle incident. I believe Officer Morris had touched base with you on that a little bit, but I could talk to you.
If
I
we
don't
could
have
talk,
it in
like-
front of me right now, and I could talk to you and kind of see what you're saying. Whatever documentation you have, I could cross-reference it with our CAD, but it was gone through.
Yeah, I don't know all the definitions
Very
and
detailed with
sorry.
ensuring that the correct information is out
Yeah.
there.
I have a big mouth, but I don't want to shoot off if I don't have the right definitions and stuff like that, so.
Yeah, there's the difference between a motor vehicle incident. A vehicle could run off the road.
If you can use the mic too.
I'm sorry.
I have watched on TV, and it's really,
A motor vehicle incident, a vehicle could run off the road and there's no reportable damage. There could be certain damage to property, but it's gonna be under a certain threshold. Motor vehicle crash, it's gonna be a certain amount of damage that gets reported in a motor vehicle crash report.
Okay, perfect. If we could figure something out, or just the definitions for that stuff before I get all mad about North Shore again. Thanks.
Just give me a share.
All right, perfect. Thanks.
Thank you, Beth, for your comment. I noticed the same thing on West Shore Trail. Those 10 spaces that are right up against the club have been utilized for that garage cycling in and out cars. And so I don't know what needs to be done there. Maybe the club is going to have to put in hours on those.
There's
That-
actually a sign that says 2-hour time limit.
Okay.
Right on the sidewalk, right by the Minnehaha house, that says 2 hours, but I've driven by on Thursdays and Fridays before 6. I've driven by on Saturdays and Sundays during the, whatever the specified hours are, and it's been the trailer with the car on it attached to the SUV. It's been the green pickup with the New York plates that was also there last night after the board meeting, and a couple of other times. Like, I'm not after the guy, I don't care. I hope that he does well because I like when small businesses do well, but when it just seems like the spots across from his place are becoming an extension of his parking lot. And then he already has, I'd say, over 10 vehicles on any given day, some with the hoods up, some with them down, some of them with no plates. I'm not sure what's going on, and I just want to make sure he's in compliance and that the green CRV that pulls out in front of the tow truck coming through doesn't get run over because he can't see.
There are also spaces being utilized in the country club parking lot with vehicles that have no license plates or stickers or registrations.
Yeah, I think the thing to do is we need, one, to
No
look
zoning,
at
so-
the zoning ordinance that
so-
applies to that area, right? What zone is it in? What are the requirements of that zone? And then other requirements, and to determine whether he's, the owner is abiding by the zoning ordinance for which he resides. So I think that's, and I think, as Chief McCarrick pointed out, this is a zoning matter. And so I think that, you've raised it, and I think that you've given some work for our zoning folks to do. But it's important work. We want folks who are conducting business in Sparta Township to simply abide by our ordinances with respect to how they conduct their business. So I appreciate it.
Sure, I'm not out for blood and I won't bring it up again. I just want to make sure that, you know how I am with cars and stuff, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Jenny Derrick's tapping to Sparta. As I wrecked the microphone.
Sorry, Jen.
That's all right.
I'm under call.
Sorry. I received, as part of an OPA request, the lots and blocks of the land that's proposing to be swapped for, to help get the landfill closed. And great, thank you for that. Will there be, once these lots are given over to the state, does the town, and I don't off the top of my head have it, but there seems to be one that is adjacent to other parkland? And will the township say the residents be able to use it for trails, or is once it goes to the state, that's it, it's in a lockbox?
Having been given the exact scenario of how it plays out, because they're changing how they want to accept it. The state would not be accepting the property. What the state would be doing is requesting that the township donate it to a land conservancy, like the Land Conservancy, or another land-serving trust, where the property will be maintained as is, open space in perpetuity.
Okay.
They would just need evidence of that transfer, is what the state would require, allowing us. That's what we're hoping for. Just a quick correction that I got from the email from our environmental consultant. She said the hearing is February 20th at 9:30 in person. This is the Water Mitigation Council. They'll hear the proposal with those properties.
Okay.
All right, and that's how I understand those parcels will be handled. So, it's all good because I always consider it a win-win.
Is the township required to determine or come up with which entity will ultimately receive this land, or is that something the state does?
That's a very good question. I'm not going to guess at it, but I think the requirement was as long as it was a land trust agency that is
the
recognized
township
by the DEP.
So the township has to come up with that.
Right.
So the
And-
township has to reach out and find somebody interested in this.
Well, our environmental consultant is tied into a bunch, and she actually has already reached out to some of these. And I don't think there's a problem
So-
finding a land trust
The
company.
environmental consultant you're referring to, is this person paid for by the township?
Not by the town, by the leasing company for
Okay.
the landfill.
Great, thank you.
Does Sparta have a trust, a land trust?
No.
Can
We-
a government
we have our
entity
own
have a
open-
land trust?
We have our own open space properties that we own, but we don't have a land trust per se.
Can we put the land trust inside the open space entity?
I'd have to consult with my professionals on that.
Okay, thanks.
Couple other quick things. Do we have any update? Has the council been apprised by the township engineer about activities at the county planning board with Bill Copenal, the engineer, regarding the application of Diamond Ship and the issues that they've been dealing with for the intersection of Demarest Drive and Limecrest?
I haven't since the last update. I know we had Mr. Stoner here. I don't know if you can-
Yeah, I've seen an email from our engineer reaching out to Mr. Copenal. I haven't seen a response yet.
So the council hasn't been given information about what's going on up there either?
We haven't been updated other than what we know currently.
Thank you. And then one of my favorite topics, minutes, meeting minutes, zoning board 2023, still missing significant numbers of minutes. Planning board 2024, missing 16 meetings for 24, and in 23, they're missing 11. And the environmental commission for 2023 and 2024 are also missing significant numbers of meeting minutes. I appreciate the work that's been done, but there's still a lot missing there.
I know a lot of minutes have been put in front of the committees for approval, waiting to be posted. I've seen a lot of activity on that, so you should be seeing more as soon as those committees meet and approve.
Okay,
And then they get posted as soon as the approval's done.
all right. Thank you.
If I can build on that, we had an idea that came out last year that I thought was a really good one, was using AI technology. Have we been
we're-
employing that?
We're doing that.
Wow.
The minutes are a combination of all of it. It's a hybrid. But it has helped, and our IT group has helped facilitate that also.
That's great. Are we using DeepSeek for that?
No, we're
I'm
not.
joking, please. No.
Sorry to disappoint
I
you.
didn't bring that up, I'm sorry.
Co-pilot.
Yeah, thank you.
Do we have any town representatives that are attending this Demarest Road Limecrest meeting?
Yes. Corey Stoner has reached out to the county and asked that we be included in any future meetings dealing with the application. And as far as I know, there hasn't been any for us to be invited to.
Well, I don't think they're inviting us. That's what the issue is.
Well, no, it's with the county. We've asked for the county to include us, and they didn't have any issue with that.
So there have not been any meetings.
Not lately. Corey Stoner and I had a meeting about a month ago here with the county engineers, and we went over the current status of the intersection, and it was updated here in front of council on the whereabouts of that meeting. And Ginny was sort of helped instigate that meeting, and we got off on a good foot with that. And we're just waiting for the next meeting with the county on what they're going to do.
I just had one quick other thing. The Business Development Committee, I can't find an ordinance for that. I look back specifically through each year for the last 3 years, and then I looked in our E-code and I can't find it. So if you have it, I don't know if it's there.
We had at least one, maybe even two, open discussions about ideas and out in the open, getting the council people to solicit ideas for that. And then I want to say it was probably around May, June, maybe July of 2023. I just turned my computer off, but if you look for the ordinances.
I looked through the ordinances. I'll look again, but I didn't see any ordinance passed by this body in 23 or 24 or 22 that established the
Interesting.
the BDC.
Perhaps the E-code
We did a lot of
system
work on that, I
not up to
remember.
date. I know there were some gaps,
Possibly.
right? with
I
the
think
E-code
council
system.
may be confusing a resolution from an ordinance. So you have,
This
something
would be
can be
an
embodied in a resolution.
Get that, but I looked at the the list of ordinances, if you look by the year, it's
Yeah.
pretty comprehensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This might have been a resolution because it's an advisory
Okay.
board.
Okay. Maybe that's
I can look
possible.
myself. I'm
It's-
curious myself now.
I couldn't find an ordinance.
One other suggestion to build on the land conservancy idea about who to pick, we could also look to the Environmental Commission just for expand the pool of ideas. They have some good experience and some good
My
connections.
fingers are crossed, Dean, that will happen.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I would love to get to that point where I could just say, hey, what do we do
Yeah.
with the approval? Because it's been a long slog to get to do this, so.
I see no other public comment.
Mr. Mayor, could I add something
Sure.
real quick?
Yeah.
Something I just wanted to bring up, I should have brought up earlier is, I spoke about our accreditation process in this past Monday. We had, yesterday, it seems like so long ago, but we had our team of assessors come from the State Chiefs Association. So what they do is they sit with us, they meet the day before on Sunday on their own time. They actually go over all of our policies, procedures, and look at all the proofs and everything. So what we say we're doing is actually what we're doing. Gentleman, a captain from Elizabeth Police Department and a lieutenant from Fairlawn Police Department were our assessors for the state association. So they came up yesterday, met with us. They speak with us again about our policies, our procedures. We give them a tour of our building. They do a ride-along, go around our town with our officers, and they were in awe by our township, by our facilities, and everything in general. You know, our policies, I owe a lot to Captain Snyder back there for getting this done, and it's a really heavy lift. There's a lot that goes into it, and we'll speak about that more in the future. But just hearing everything tonight, and I want to reflect that, you know, when you have individuals who come to your town and they take a ride around and they are simply in awe on how beautiful our township is, how clean our department is, I got to give props to Gene Donnelly and the guys from you know, Public Works and Candace, our janitor. I let them know, like, we have some guests coming. Can you help me out? They're down there early in the morning scrubbing, cleaning and stuff like that. And, you know, it really shows who we are as a township here with our employees and our community. And it's a great thing for people on the outside to come in and let you know that. And it takes a team from everybody, from you up there, from our community, from our employees to get things done. And it's about working together. And it just kind of reflected tonight and listening a lot about what's going on. So I just wanted to make that comment and put that out there for you.
Thank you. And-
Thank you.
Congratulations. It's
Thanks,
well
Steve.
deserved, yeah.
I can build on that because and you were at the meeting on Monday when the Sister City Committee met, and we talked about how we're going, sorry to keep you hanging there.
That's all right. I
but,
need to stand.
Yeah, me too. I can't sit still very well. My back bothers me. But, you know, we talked about how we would advertise for our 2026 conference and what we want to achieve by that. And I was very clear, what I want to achieve, I want people to come to Sparta from all over the world and say, this is a great place. That's if we get one thing out of that, with our festival that we're planning and the conference and the world's attention, that's what I want to accomplish and have the world see what a great place this is. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, just thank you, Chief and Detective Snyder, for all the work that you've done. And doesn't surprise me that folks would come in and remark about how fantastic, one, your organization is, but also how beautiful Sparta is. And that doesn't come by accident. It comes by people focused on the mission and trying to improve their community. You know, one volunteer hour, one shift, you know, one task at a time. And so it's really appreciated. Thank you, Manager Zepp, for, inculcating those type of values in our staff, that they would put such effort that when people come, they're in awe. And so my hat goes off to all our employees in particular who make that happen. So thank you. Okay, we're public comment, Mr. Dolce.
Hi, Frank Dolce. Just on behalf of everybody who's here tonight with the Film Commission, I want to thank everybody on the council, Chief, for your time. This has been probably about a year in the making to get to this point. A lot of meetings, a lot of research, a lot of phone calls. So here we are. We're now working directly with the state and taking advice from them. We met with John Crowley from the head of the State Film Commission. We already have interest in the town, to no surprise. It's a great town. We all love the town, just like Councilman Dan has said, and Chief, you've said, the facilities we have here are outstanding. It's gorgeous. It's beautiful. So other than that, just thank you for your time. We've got a pretty robust agenda for the year. Definitely hope to set out and accomplish all those goals and have more updates for you in the future. So that's it. Yeah.
Thank
thanks.
you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right, unless there's any other public comment, I will make a motion to adjourn. So I move that we adjourn. May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 The motion is adjourned.